Alistair, hello, how are things?
I'm very well, Carlo. How are you?
I am splendid, couldn't be better. So, Alistair, the floor is yours, and we're eager to find out more about Wyld Networks.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. So my name's Alistair Williamson, and I'm the CEO of Wyld Networks. Wyld Networks is a satellite operator for the Internet of Things, or IoT for short. And what we do is we've developed a solution that allows our customers to collect data from their IoT sensors anywhere in the world. So a bit like what Elon Musk has done with Starlink, he's using satellites to provide broadband services to people anywhere in the world. We're using a completely different technology, but we're actually using low Earth orbiting satellites to allow companies to collect their data from anywhere in the world. We hit the next slide, please. So we formed the company in 2019, and the challenge as we saw it then was that only 15% of the world's surface has got access to the internet through 3G, 4G, 5G, and Wi-Fi, and that's mainly in areas where people live, so in cities and towns. However, with the Internet of Things and IoT, companies want to deploy their IoT sensors and devices everywhere in the world. And it's projected about 46 billion IoT sensors are going to be deployed by 2028, a significant number of them being outside the area of that 15% that exists today. So the problem is that 85% of the world has got no access to the internet. A lot of those IoT devices want to be deployed in that 85% of the world's surface. So what we've done is we've developed a satellite IoT solution to solve the problem. Next slide, please. So by using low Earth orbiting satellites, we've developed a solution that allows our customers to connect their IoT devices anywhere in the world. So we're providing 100% global coverage for IoT devices to be connected to the internet. And to give you an idea of the size of that market is projected to be about 8.7 billion US dollars by 2028. So it's a rapidly growing market. Next slide, please. So to give you an idea of what does actually physically look like, so we've got two physical products that have been developed. One is in the yellow is Wyld Connect, and these are terminals that are on the ground. They connect to the IoT sensor, whether that sensor is a corrosion sensor or a soil moisture sensor. Those terminals connect to the IoT sensor, and they send the data from those sensors to the low Earth orbiting satellites in space. Now, those terminals can actually go into the field, and one part of our product ability is that those terminals can go into the field without the need for mains electricity. So they can go into the field and they'll stay there for 5 to 7 years without electricity, because you can imagine in that 85% of the world's surface, if there's no internet access, there's probably going to be no electricity. So that's the Wyld Connect piece, which is the terminals, and that's a hardware product. The data is sent to satellites. The satellites then send the data back down to ground and to a product called Wyld Fusion, which is a software solution we've developed. And that software solution tracks the satellites, it provisions the devices, and it provides the security. And then that data is then sent to our customers, and our customers have got sensor apps, data analytics programs, and they analyze that data and then make a decision on what they want to do with that data, an informed decision whether to switch off irrigation, switch on a valve, turn off a valve. They can make informed decisions based on the data we've collected from those sensors. Next slide, please. So if I just go through the products, but talk about it from a revenue perspective. So as I said, there's the Wyld Connect, which is a hardware device, which is the terminal. And that's a one-off fee. So our customers pay up to $500 per terminal. And so for every IoT device they're deploying into the field, they need to also deploy a terminal to basically send the data to satellite. So that's a one-off hardware fee. And then with Wyld Fusion, that's a monthly subscription fee that our customers pay us to get access into Fusion so they can provision their devices. That's a monthly fee. It's a reoccurring fee to actually use Wyld Fusion. And then there's the third component of the revenue model, and that is the data fee. And that's the fee that our customers pay to use the complete end-to-end satellite solution. And our customers pay us up to $5 per terminal per month. So that's where the reoccurring revenue comes from. So our business model is very similar to that of a mobile operator in that you pay a one-off fee for your hardware, that's your mobile phone, and then you pay Telenor, I know, 40 euros a month to actually use the network. Our business model is very much the same. You pay a one-off fee for the hardware, that's the terminal, and then you pay a monthly fee of up to $5 per terminal per month to use the network. Next slide, please. So as you can imagine, considering we're providing in the majority connectivity in that 85% of the world's surface where there's no access to the internet apart from utilizing the Wyld satellite IoT solution, our customers are in agriculture, an example being soil moisture sensing, in energy, that's the oil and gas companies, that's in corrosion monitoring, pipeline monitoring, in utilities, water, gas, electricity, monitoring pressure, metering, electricity supply, water flow, logistics, really both maritime and land-based, that's using satellite connectivity to track containers, but also to track the humidity and temperature of the goods within inside the containers. And also there's an environmental sector where basically people are using Wyld Connect solution to look at measuring how much plastic's in the ocean, the effects of deforestation, and other attributes associated to the environment. So those are the verticals that we're actually working in. Next slide, please. So just to give you an idea of where our coverage is today, so those that know Wyld know that when we developed this solution, we were looking to use the ISM band, which is a frequency band, and the ISM band can be used virtually everywhere in the world. We had some issues with our satellite partners using the ISM band, so we moved to the L band and the S band, where we now have excellent coverage in respect to the number of satellites. But with the L and the S band, you have to get approval on a country basis to be able to operate in those countries. So what you can see in yellow is the countries where we have the landing rights and the approval and the operating license to basically operate our solution in those countries. So that covers Australasia, Australia, New Zealand, part of Asia Pacific, the majority of Africa, all of the European Union, Brazil and Peru. So we currently have licenses to operate in those countries. And what you see there in pink is really important because we're also applying for the licenses in the rest of Latin America, North America, that's the United States, Canada, various countries in the Middle East and the whole of Asia Pacific. And we expect to get those approvals very, very shortly, which will open us up into an even larger market, and particularly the US, where that market represents about 30% of the satellite IoT business. So we'll be getting that license very, very shortly, and then just opening up a greater part of the world for us. What I should also say is that we have the operating license for international waters, so that's all the oceans and the seas, so that basically supports our logistics vertical in tracking containers. Next slide, please. I'm just now going to talk about a few use cases so you can get an understanding of actually what we do. So if we can go to the next slide, please. We're working with Chevron in the oil and gas sector. And just to give you an idea, there are hundreds of millions of kilometers of oil and gas pipes that are running around the world. A lot of them are in that area where there's no connectivity, that 85% of the world's surface. And the problem is, and what Chevron is looking to address, is that oil pipes corrode, and once they corrode, they leak. And over 1.5 million gallons of oil and biofuel leaked from pipelines in 2020 in the US alone. And in one instance, the cost of a corroded pipe creating leaked oil cost up to $257 million to clean up. So companies like Chevron and a lot of other oil and gas companies are deploying corrosion sensors on these pipelines. So about every 500 meters to 1,000 meters, they want to put an IoT sensor on the pipeline to measure the water content in the pipe, the humidity, and the difference in temperature in the environment. They want to collect that data, and they're using Wyld Networks satellite IoT solution to collect that data, and they can then analyze that data and then make decisions on whether that pipe looks like it may corrode. They'll go out and they'll fix it. So this is all about preventative maintenance in this use case. We go to the next one, please. Here's an example. We're working with Bayer, obviously a massive company, and also GeoApis. And this is basically monitoring the health of beehives. There are 94 million commercial beehives around the world. And, the industry generates a significant amount of revenue, over 15 billion annually in US dollars of revenue is generated from these beehives. And more importantly, in some cases, bees actually represent as pollinators. They create about 30% of the global food production, so they're incredibly important. And in the United States, a couple of years ago, they lost 45% of all of their beehive colonies due to disease. So companies like Bayer and GeoApis are using the Wyld Networks satellite IoT solution to collect data from these hives using satellites to analyze the health and well-being of the hives. Once they understand the health and well-being of the hives, they can ensure that if there's a problem going to happen, they can go out and they can solve it. So there's another example that obviously has implications not just on global food production through pollination, but also a significant benefit for us all. Next slide, please. We're quite strong in agriculture, and we're working with companies like KWS, that's a €2 billion company, Hazara, massive company, Store, Pitaya, Olho Solho, DFM Technologies. And what these companies are doing is they're in agriculture, and they deploying Wyld Networks solution to collect data from soil moisture sensors. And this is really important because in the agricultural business, millions of soil moisture sensors are being deployed. And the reason being is that 70% of all fresh water is used in agriculture, which is incredible. 70% of all of our fresh water is used in agriculture. And 30% of that water that's used in agriculture is actually wasted due to over-irrigation. So what companies are doing is they're deploying soil moisture sensors all over their agricultural farmland. That soil moisture sensor measures the amount of moisture or water content in the soil and the acidity and various pH levels of the soil. They use Wyld solution to basically collect the data via satellite, analyze that data, and then understand when to irrigate and when not to irrigate, which is the most important thing, so they don't waste water and over irrigate. Next slide, please. Here's another example in the utilities market. This is actually in Peru. The electricity company basically got fined $1.6 million last year because it didn't have sufficient data to bill their customers. So it's quite easily to collect data on how much electricity is being used if you're living in a city. Simply the fact you've got 2G, 3G networks that collect that data. But in rural areas, it's virtually impossible to collect that data unless you can collect that data using a satellite IoT solution. And our customer is using Wyld to collect metering data or billing data so that they can bill their customers accordingly and avoid getting fined by the government. Next slide, please. This is an interesting one. We've got a customer that we're working with actually in Brazil, Prino, and they're a conglomerate involved in multiple businesses, but we're working with them on tracking cargo. And it's not just tracking containers, but it's also getting data on temperature and humidity within those containers, so the goods arrive in the optimum quality. Just to give you an idea, cargo theft costs about 154 million in 2024 in the USA alone. 1.7 million packages are lost every year, and about 600 billion of food is spoiled by poor supply chain management, in the fact that that food actually is rotten by the time it reaches its destination. So there's a huge market for tracking not just your goods, but also the temperature and humidity and quality of your goods while they're in transit. And here's an example of what we're doing with a customer in Brazil. Next slide, please. So routes to market, we do sell direct. We also sell through terrestrial operators such as Vodafone that have a terrestrial network, but they want to expand their coverage to include satellite IoT. We also work with distributors, and mainly in countries where we don't have a great amount of reach, we go through distributors and they resell into the territory. We've been working for quite some time on getting the solution up and running. We had some issues with ISM band satellites, so we moved to L band and S band satellites, which are now up and operational. We've got an order backlog of about $9 million, which we're now starting to ship. The first shipments will be going out imminently this month. To give you an idea of that order backlog of 9 million, about 58% of it's in agriculture, 27% energy, oil and gas sector, and 15% in the telecom business. Next slide, please. So reaching cash flow positive. So we've got a really good order backlog, and yes, we've had some issues with delays on shipping products due to satellite coverage, but our view is that the company plans to basically get neutral cash flow or cash flow positive by the end of Q4 2025. We had some delays, as those that know Wyld, we had some delays in 2024, which was mainly due to some manufacturing issues, but also substantially due to our satellite partners not providing enough satellite coverage. So we moved partners, that's why we moved to the L band and the S band. That's all now in place. We've got excellent satellite coverage, and the solution is working to a really, really high level quality of service. We're actually getting over 99.98% delivery of messages from sensor to customer. So really where we are at the moment is basically getting ourselves into the position of scaling up the manufacture, of breaking into new territory, and basically shipping product against our order backlog and really expanding our data business. Next slide, please. So to sort of try and wrap it up, I think just what's the investment case? The investment case is we have first mover advantage. We were the first guys out there with this whole concept of low power, terminals on the ground that don't require electricity, utilizing next generation low Earth orbiting satellites that are relatively inexpensive compared to traditional satellites, so we can offer a really affordable solution to our customers. The technology's got immense potential. We see a lot of communications moving away from terrestrial networks to satellite networks. We see IoT as being at the forefront of this, but we also see the concept of direct mobile to satellite communications coming into play. And from an investment timing perspective, it's a great time to invest in Wyld. We've basically sunk all the cost in the development. We've built up an order backlog, and we're now shipping against that order backlog. And what I do like about this business is its reoccurring revenue model. The fact that we charge our customers a reoccurring fee for the data usage is really attractive, because yes, we get hardware revenue, but we also get the reoccurring fee from the data usage, which is a monthly fee that really starts to build up over time. And my next slide is just basically a few examples of where we've got some deployments, and I'd like to open up to questions and answers.
Thank you for that, Alistair. Very interesting and intriguing in the world of satellites and the globe, I would say. We had a couple of questions here, but I think you have touched upon them, because one of the question is, when are you going into black numbers? And as I understand it, with the delays now fixed, 2025 would be a year where we can see revenue contribution. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So we're shipping product. We've scaled up our production capability on the S-band and the L-band, and revenues will be shipped imminently, this month. So, and that will grow obviously as we start to ship more product. And in answering the question, we're planning to go to the cash flow positive piece by the end of 2025, as I said in the slides.
And sorry, and also you refer to moving band, and I saw one news regarding Brazil and going into the S-band or S frequency. How important is that, and is there more to come?
Absolutely. We've been working really hard on getting all of the approvals in all of the countries that I showed on that slide, where you could see that we've got approval for S-band and L-band in a lot of area in Asia Pacific. We've got it in most of Africa. We've got it in the European Union. We've got it in Brazil and Peru. We recently announced the S-band approval in Brazil a couple of weeks ago. But what's really important about getting these approvals is previously we were working on temporary licenses, so we couldn't really ship a lot of product because they were temporary licenses. So now that we've got the full approval, we can really start to ship a lot of product. Brazil was important for us because, a large number of that order backlog is actually in Brazil. So that was a really important announcement, getting the S-band approval in Brazil. And we will, we're working now on getting the approvals for the North American market. That's the US, Canada, the rest of Latin America, and that will really open up the rest of the world for us. But our focus has been primarily on where we've got the S and L band, and then getting into the US market and the rest of Latin America will happen pretty quickly.
And just to give us a feel here, how long is a license?
The licenses last between 5 and 10 years.
Okay.
That's not really you then sort of reapply for the license. The hard work is actually getting the license to start off with, because you actually have to demonstrate to the regulator that you're not causing any interference with the frequency that you're using, and that you're providing a quality of service to your customer. So the hard work is getting the license. Renewing is pretty easy. Okay,
cool. So 2025 will be a year of deliverance when it comes to revenues and continuing licenses, as I understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, cool. We'll inform the market as we keep moving along.
Mm. And the next data point, news-wise, from you is when?
Well, I'm really, I think there's really two key things that are happening at the moment. One is getting product out the door and generating revenue, which is really imminent this month. And I think the other sort of trigger is really getting that frequency spectrum approval in the United States, because the United States represents about 30% of the market. So we're very close on getting that tied in, signed off, and done. So I'd see those as the two major triggers sort of moving forward. And then additionally, sort of getting other territories into it, but those are the substantial markets.
Well, thank you for that, Alistair. And if anyone has any further questions, we should direct them to what? To the homepage, to you, or to whom?
Yeah, direct them directly to me, alistair.williamson@wyldnetworks.com.
Thank you. Very interesting, and it should be very exciting to watch this space. Thank you so much, Alistair.
Thank you.